I hope you all got a chance to enroll on Moodle.
Yes, doctor, we've enrolled.
Okay, so you've also seen the first assignment, yeah?
Not yet. I haven't yet gone through personally.
Okay, it's there. It's on one of the case studies bent on manufacturing company. Please take some time and look at it, yeah? It's an individual assignment. Okay, today we want to look at benchmarking and we want to look at benchmarking specifically in strategy, management, and planning. We want to, and it's a big part of strategy formulation and planning because we start by looking at what others are doing. And as we mentioned the last time, when we're looking at strategy, we are looking at improving ourselves. That's where we are looking at who we are now and who we want to be. And of course, we look at people who are doing it well in our industry. So that's what benchmarking is all about. So we want to understand what benchmarking is all about. Okay. We want to see how to use some generic approaches to benchmarking, things that are guide, some generic approaches and methods. We're going to have a look at that. Then also make use of standards to steer an approach to benchmarking. Just some, like anything that is encouraged, there are all usually approaches and standards that have been set aside. We want to be able to engage in a benchmarking project, yeah, and then apply standards to evaluating benchmarking. Let's move this back up. So benchmarking is basically a tool that is important for quality management. Yeah, we want to ensure that what we are doing, especially in strategy formulation, we want to ensure that we are actually introducing quality into what we are doing. We are actually bringing an improvement. We desire an improvement. So benchmarking is one of the things we do to ensure that we actually bring about a change and a positive change. So benchmarking is not new. It has been used time and time again. I'm sure for most of you, this is nothing new. You've heard about it before and probably you have used it. So it's nothing new, but it's basically there to promote process improvement. We're looking at re-engineering and process improvements. So that's the primary purpose of strategy formulation. And that's why one of the things that ensures that we do that is benchmarking. So it is a popular method in strategy formulation. It is something that has been used over and over again. So it's something that we can't do without. It's not possible to say I want to do strategy formulation and not do benchmarking. So let me see if I can get rid of some of these things. So, give me a minute. So, yes, I think this one is a bit better. Okay, so here on this slide, we want to just give you a basic concept of what benchmarking is. From our discussions last week, we know that we start with looking at ourselves on who we are right now. What is our performance level? Because the objective is to improve our performance level. Now, in benchmarking, we say, what are others doing? How are they doing it? And then using what we have seen and also what with others and also with ourselves, we creatively adopt. So we do not copy and paste, but we creatively adopt a strategy that is unique to us. So take an example. If I, let's say, visit one of the ladies in this class, maybe Teresa or Gertrude, and maybe I realize, Teresa dresses really well, also Gertrude dresses really well, something I'm not really good at. I really also need to dress well, and I want to improve on my physical appearance, especially in terms of in clothes, okay, in the style that I pick. It would not be a good idea for me to pick exactly what Teresa wears or what Gertrude wears, because we may not be the same body shape, we may not be in the same age group, we may be in different professions and so on and so forth. So if I say I want to improve my looks, my physical appearance, especially in clothes, as much as I have looked at Teresa, I can't copy and paste what Teresa is wearing or what Gertrude is wearing. Probably what I would ask Teresa is, why do you pick the clothes you pick? Then she would say, maybe I pick this because of my body shape. These types of clothes suit this body shape. Then I'll say, okay, I want to look smart, but I do not have body shape. So I need to look for clothes. Yeah. Then maybe Gertrude will say, these are the current materials that are on style. That kind of thing. Okay, I may look for that material, but for a different body shape, something like that. So that's what we mean by creative adoption. So the objective of first knowing who you are, what is your performance, how do we do it, and understanding yourself is that so that when you see the principles and approaches the others are using, you creatively adopt these principles and values to create your own strategic plan. That is the whole point. Now, at the end of it all, of course, it is the hope that you have a breakthrough in performance. You have an improvement in performance. Okay? Please also look at the case study, the first case study that I've given you, because what the assignment there is looking at the case study is actually about a manufacturing company that is facing stiff competition and is looking to adopt an ERP to improve performance. So the question is, of course, there are doubts here and there. The question is, is this a good idea? Is the ERP a really good idea, depending on what they want to look at? So it's a question of, will it bring about improvement? Is it a good strategic move to purchase and adopt? So the concept of benchmarking is an old one. It was started by Xero, and they basically wanted to evaluate themselves, and especially identifying their strengths and weaknesses and match the changing market conditions. So it's nothing new from 1979. It's not a new concept. It's been around. So we are adopting it now. We are looking at it now as ICT professionals. So the definition, as we see here, is really looks back to what we've been already discussing. It's you're comparing yourself. An organization is comparing itself, its business processes, performance metrics to the best who in their industry, to others in the industry. So normally when we benchmark, we don't look to one who is performing below us, but one who is above us, one who is performing better. And preferably, you'd also want to look at somebody who is within your group. Whereas in any sector, you may have several players. So let me just give you an example. In the higher institution sector, you have several institutions. You have universities, you have colleges, schools, and so on and so forth. but we're not all the same. And if you look at universities themselves, they're not all in the same category. You have private universities, you have public universities. You have those which are religious founded, you have those which are purely private. You have those which have been formulated based on a particular field. Take an example, I forget the full name, IHK, the university attached to IHK. It's specifically focused on healthcare. So you have all these different. So you need to look at someone's. You need to benchmark with the one that you wish to be like. Okay, so that's where you focus on. So benchmarking is basically learning from others. How are they doing it, and what are their best practices? What are their standards? So it is to the objective is to do things better, faster, and cheaper. That's usually the primary objective. So normally you're typically measuring yourselves or things like quality. Yeah. The output, what is the output? Is it greater efficiency and effectiveness? Then time and cost. These are the 3 dimensions that one is looking at. Why would we need to benchmark? Basically, we're looking at improvement. You want to improve what you're doing. You want to improve your outputs. You want to improve your performance in the sector. There are certain areas that need attention. You're looking at performance improvement. It's about identifying your weaknesses and strengths. Your weaknesses and strengths, and then those of your competitors. And basically to understand yourself and understand those around you. So benchmarking helps an organization look for the best for best practices. That's one. Who is doing it better? Can we also do it like them? Then you're looking for innovation. Yeah, you're looking to do things different, better. Yeah, you're looking to be effective in your operations and procedures. You can find out in this time while you're benchmarking whether you're falling behind, whether you need to pull up your socks, and so on and so forth. It's a good way to inspire management. I participated in a benchmarking process in the tea industry. And I remember after we did the benchmarking process, both board and management were really inspired by the end of the benchmarking process. We were really inspired. They really got fired up to do something better. I remember it was back in beginning of 2023. Yeah, I'm not mistaken. At the end of it, once the team is inspired, it allows you to set objectives, goals for which you intend to target and hit. Then it also prevents the reinventing the wheel. Why? You're seeing how somebody else is doing it, and now you say we want to do the same thing. You're not starting afresh. You're already seeing how somebody else is doing it. Yeah? But remember, as we said, it's creative adoption, not copy and paste. So it also helps to accelerate change and restructuring, okay, in all these different ways. We can go through this further as we go through benchmarking. Here is a sample of a question. I'm not sure it's very clear, but here is a sample of a questionnaire. So once one goes benchmarking, you go prepared, okay? You're going out there to collect data, which data you're going to analyze, and later on clearly identify your gaps, the gaps for yourself and how you need to close them. So you'd have typically a tool such as this, which, let's look at this question here, which says, processes, you would have identified particular processes that you want to benchmark, how people are doing certain things. You want to you ask question. Processes have been documented with measures to understand performance. Okay, so though you would have identified those particular processes that you wish to understand. And it goes on further. Employees understand the processes that are related to their own work and so on and so forth. You can go through this by yourself. And you see here at the bottom, it gives you marking points, or rather marks to give to a response so that you know exactly where your gap is. So you would have identified, for example, for yourselves about your processes, and then, for example, employees understanding if there's been proper communication, communication to customers, and so on and so forth. So you would have identified your own gap, and then look at what the other person who is doing better than you, the gap, the closure and gap, or rather the difference between you and them. Okay, so that would clearly give you a gap of where you stand. We shall see a little bit later a graph which gives a proper picture of identifying the gaps after benchmarking. So benchmarking process has 4 different steps. You start with planning, data collection, integration, and action and monitoring. So let's start with planning. So the planning process is done as a team. So you'd have a core team that begins the planning process. So it begins by identifying roles and assigning them to individuals or groups. Okay. Then you decide what you wish to benchmark. If you saw this previous questionnaire talks about processes and procedures. So you'd identify specifically where you want to improve, where you want to improve, where do you wish to see improvement, where do you wish to see quality. Yeah. So what do you wish to benchmark? Then you identify the particular processes that will need to be benchmarked. So take an example. Let's say for UMU, we want to benchmark on e-learning. So the question would be, what processes in e-learning do we want to benchmark particularly? Do we want to benchmark the infrastructure, the technical infrastructure? Then there's the academic infrastructure that supports e-learning. Do we want to benchmark the training, the skills and training that is training processes that are being done, and so on and so forth? You list them out. Then you identify them, then decide on whom you need to benchmark. Who are we going to go to? Because you want to learn from the best, not from the worst, but from the best. Not someone who is below you, but someone who is above you. Document the current process, the way you're doing things right now. So if UMU is doing something on e-learning, how are we doing it right now? Okay? And what are the gaps? Identify outputs required. Then you determine your data collection methods. Here you saw an example of a questionnaire, but you can decide to do interviews. You can decide to do maybe group discussions. It depends. But I think questionnaire, of course, is much faster because you're going to talk to people who are busy, should I say? Yeah. An important thing to note is that top management must be very involved at this point. Why? Because they are the ones going to drive the process. They're the ones going to allocate resources. They're the ones going to give mandates to those who are responsible, like to grant them, give them that authority to do A, B, C, D. Yeah. Do we have any questions so far?
No, doctor.
Okay. So let's move on here. So here are just some guiding questions to help you review your planning process. What are the key business processes? Yeah, the ones that for your organization, and specifically the ones that you want to look at or benchmark. What functions? What are the functions where improvements are most essential? Okay. Are all members of the project, the benchmarking project, are they familiar with the vision and mission statements, the long-term organizational goals? Are they familiar with them? Because you all need to know what you're driving at. So everyone needs to know what's the vision we're driving towards. Yeah. What are the critical success factors in order for this thing to succeed? What are the critical success factors for your organization? Do all processes require benchmarking? Some things may not require benchmarking. We already know what needs to be changed. We may already know something that we don't want to change. What are the most critical? Yeah. Has the information about all possible organizations to compare been collected? Is the method of collecting information systematic? So these are just some guiding questions. And here we have further, will it be possible to access information from the chosen organization? So you must go to an organization which you know is going to open up to you. You must have a relationship with that organization. Yeah. Is the organizations, is it the best in class process? Is it really where we can go to learn how to do something better? I remember when I was a student, that was at Uganda Matters, and bachelor student, that was really a long time ago. I joined university then in 1995. So I'm here giving away my age. You can tell where I fall in the age bracket. So that was 1995. So at that time, UMU was the only university where on graduation day, students received both their certificates and their transcript. It was unheard of at Makerere University. So I think at that time when Professor Bariamrewa became Vice Chancellor, Makerere University came to UMU specifically to see how UMU was able to give students, the graduates, their transcripts and certificates on graduation day. So that was already UMU was best in class in that process. Yeah? So the organization you pick to benchmark should be one truly where you're going to learn something from. How superior are the results of the process of the chosen organization? Goes back to the same question. To what extent are the practices of the organization with the best class process different? So all of these are essentially to help you ensure that you have picked the appropriate organization to benchmark from. And we can go on so on and so forth. We move to the second process, data gathering and analysis. So after the first process, the planning process, we go to the actual organization. Remember previously I talked about gap analysis. So this image here shows you the gap analysis you'd have done on yourself maybe on one specific process or several processes, showing you the gap of where you are now and where you want to be and how we need to fill that gap. Yeah, we want to fill up that gap. So the data collection process, first from yourself and then from the selected organizations, how they are doing it better. Now, for example, with Makerere University and UMU at that time, they probably were looking at, okay, how does UMU ensure that all results are in for the graduates? But what are the time frames from the time a student sits their exam to the time the lecturer marks, the process of the lecturer marking, submitting to the faculty, then the faculty sits, then Senate. How are those processes carried out? For any that is left, any that is left behind, how is that one handled? If there's someone who is not within that group, if there's a SAP, the supplementaries, if there are retakes and so on and so forth, how is all of that organized to ensure that by the time somebody is graduating, at the end, there are actually results? So all those processes. So, but then Makerere would go back to itself and see, okay, maybe we don't have, they must have looked at, maybe we did not have a strict standard on marking time, and strict standard on when faculty sit, strict standard on when Senate sits, and so on and so forth. And when registries handed this but so that they can compile the transcripts and so on and so forth. So I'm sure that's where they looked at where the gaps were. So that would be the purpose of data collection. Okay. Do we have any questions so far?
Yes, Doctor, I have a request.
Yes, please.
In regards to the representation of the gap,
Mm-hmm.
the gap analysis. I don't know
Yes.
whether it's possible for you to be able to do this graph, because I'm seeing the current, then the former, because I've realized
Former gap. Mm-hmm.
these graph representations they give a lot of insight at the end of the day when you're presenting maybe a proposal.
Yes. Yeah.
And when it's explained, it seems very easy until when you actually have to do the representation.
So
Yeah.
this graph is simply saying that you would have done on where you were before. Yeah, let us say Makerere, before they came to us, they came to UMO those many years back. They must have looked at formally where were they in regard to timely output of the transcript and certificate. Then where they were at that time, that was their current position. Where were they? How quickly would a student, maybe if they looked at themselves, that was, when did they come? When did Professor Variamreva come? I think it was in the early 2000s. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But I'm sure they looked at, okay, almost started in 1995. If they said in 1993. So in 1993, they probably asked themselves, where were we in terms of timely output of a transcript? Was it that a student would get it after a month, after 2 months, after graduation, a year, or what was the time gap? Then they looked at their the time early 2000s. They must have been asking themselves, what is the time gap? Is it worse than the former or better? Okay, is it worse than the former or better? If formerly they were giving them out, maybe the minimum time was 6 months, and currently it's now 1 year. If they're looking at the statistics, because they would be looking at the statistics. Then they say, in the future, what do we want to do? In the future, they say we want the output to be on the day of graduation. On the day of graduation, we should have an output of each graduate should have their transcript and certificate. So in this time, they would look at formally what was the time frame from the time of sitting exams to results being formally accepted at Senate level. What is the time frame? What was the time frame then when we were at 6 months? This is just for result submission. Then at the current, maybe, which is now 1 year, what is the time frame for result submission? And then when they would look at it, they look at themselves, then they look at UMU. UMU tells them, for us, from 1995, it has been on day of it. Maybe they would say, UMU says it is a period of from time of sitting exams. We have a time frame of maybe let's say 1 month. And for them, if they look at it, they find that maybe they had a time frame of 4 months. And then they say, okay, there's a clear gap here. And then here, formally for 1 year, maybe here it had gone to 6 months. And then for UMU, it remained on 1 month. So they would say, okay, what is our gap? How do we need to narrow it down, considering our number of students, the number of programs, and so on and so forth? Can we cut this down to 2 months? That is the gap we need to close for the future. That is just for the process of formal results. Yeah, the results formally accepted. So for students, I'm just talking about a process that I know of. When a student is marked by a lecturer, the lecturer submits the results to the faculty. The results are discussed at faculty level, accepted at faculty level, and then sent to Senate, and Senate gives the final stamp of approval. Yeah. So that's the formal process where results are at the Senate level. Now this student with these results, right from first year to third year, this is when the results are formally accepted, and then the registry can take them on and say, these can now go onto a transcript formally, and a certificate can be given. So at this point, they are looking at their gaps. So even, I'm just talking about results, maybe they also look at the process of constituting a faculty and then Senate, that process itself. What is constituting the faculty board meeting, then Senate meetings? What is that process? Where are the gaps in that? So in that, the Makerere University would be identifying maybe where they are not choosing to do something quickly. Where is the point where they choose to do something that is that ends up dragging and maybe curtailing the process? You may find maybe in some of their policies, they had maybe something like all faculty board members should be present before results are passed. And yet you can say, okay, we can have a quorum where we say minimum of this number of faculty members. Once they're present, that's sufficient to pass results. Okay? Something like that. So that results can be quickly passed and move on and pass on the students. So that would be, I'm not necessarily looking at the graph itself, I'm talking about how you are identifying the gaps themselves. So the graph itself could be different, the way it would look would be different from what we have here. This one is simply here to show you that you look at the former gap, the current gap, and where we want to be in future. How do we close that gap? Teresa, have I answered your question?
Yes, you have.
Okay. So these are just some questions on how you can review your data analysis and gathering phase. Now here, you would first of all ask yourself if your team members have both analytical and creativity and innovation skill to actually carry out the process of data analysis and data gathering and analysis. Has the gap analysis been done between the performance of the company process and the benchmarked? Where you look for effectiveness, efficiency, and responsiveness. Yeah, it's like some of the things I've been discussing in the previous page. I'm just assuming what happened for Makerere's case when they came to benchmark with UMU. Have the performance gaps in the company's processes been compared with the benchmark processes? Reasons for better performance, have they been brainstormed? the process of have the process definition documents for both companies been compared? After comparing the descriptive processes, have the flowcharts of the two processes been compared and analyzed? So you're comparing yourself, you have your particular case and the benchmarked organization, and you identify where the different gaps are. Have the impact of the differences in work practices been fully studied? Does the team have proposals for making changes? And so on and so forth. Senior management and other interested parties, have they been convinced by the team that the other processes are much superior where we want to adopt? Has the revised process been tried to ensure adaptability? Have the successes of the revised processes been documented? And so on and so forth. You can go through these questions at your own time, but basically it is to ensure it's guiding the data collection and analysis process to ensure that you have done your due diligence as far as this process is concerned. The third process is integration, and basically integration is mostly about communication, because after that, the team which has done benchmarking, it must come back and communicate to others what they have found. So you define stretching targets, vision and alternative processes, consider the barriers, then plan to implement change. Okay? So who you have your findings, who are they going to be communicated to? Who are you going to communicate these findings to? Have you communicated these findings to senior management to seek approval? Have you shared these with all the departments that are involved in the process that that is being proposed for change? Those who are going to be affected, those who are interested parties but not necessarily part and parcel of your organization. For example, your suppliers. Makerere, let's say, for example, when Makerere University was looking at improving the output of transcripts and certificates, there are suppliers who are involved. For example, those who supply the raw materials on which the transcripts are printed, the paper on which this is printed. Who else? Who else may be involved? It could be the parents who pay school fees, yeah? That your school fees should be paid on time, and so on and so forth. So have the suppliers, those who are affected by the change, have they also been informed? Then has the impact of the revised quality of output been communicated to the customer? So that, for example, if a student is being told you should have paid fees by this time in order that you receive your certificate on time and your transcript on time, it should have been communicated to them why the timely fees payment is important. Have the different types of communication from the different audiences been decided upon? How are you going to communicate to the departments, to management, to your suppliers, to your customers, and so on and so forth? Have the revised processes and proposed performance goals been approved by management? Have you taken sufficient steps to find out the gaps in the different departments? Especially those that hold reservations or those who are concerned about difficulties in implementation, so that do they know that really because you do things this way, this affects delivery of this? Are they fully aware? Yeah. Have all issues been raised been addressed? So this is all you're seeing. The integration process is more about communication before actual implementation, that everyone is aware of what is going on. Yeah. The performance goals that you have set out, have they been turned into operational goals? Have the operational goals been prioritized? So you see, integration process is more of communication and planning for implementation itself. So the final part, action and monitoring, is the actual part where we implement. So you develop the action, the action plan for implementation, roll it out, collect data about progress, evaluate progress. Yeah. So this is where we actually implement. So you develop the action plan to implement the proposed changes. Then you document the changes required for implementation. Then the team arranges activities in sequence, the activities of how you're going to implement. You task and assign those with the right to make the changes. You have commitments from team members and their superiors about the changes that are going to be made. The different teams for implementation and analysis. Then the new processes, ensuring that you update all directional documents and specifications. Does everyone know about the improvement that is permanent? Has the team and the senior management develop a mechanism to review competitive positions, and so on and so forth? So those are the 4 stages, and those are the basic questions that help you review. We now want to look at methodology. Yeah, methodology for carrying out benchmarking. Now, there are several methodologies, and if you Google them, you'll find them, but we want to look at the most generic. All of them have these basic generic steps. 1, identifying your problem area. Almost things like research, but not really. You identify your problem area, or rather the processes that need improvement. Yeah, those processes that actually need improvement. You identify the industries that have similar processes, identify those who are the leaders, survey those companies, visit the best company to identify, implement new and improved. So basically what we've been discussing. So the methodology, this one is just simply pointing out the generic steps. So there are different types of benchmarking that can be done. So you can do process benchmarking, financial benchmarking for investor perspective, and so on and so forth. There are different types depending on what you want to look at specifically. What you need to do is, first of all, as you're carrying out your benchmarking, is first of all give a time frame for every stage of that time frame for time and effort that is going to be assigned to the different stages of benchmarking, so that you at every step the team is aware of when should the identification process, when should it be done? Should it be done within the first 2 weeks, and so in the next 2 weeks, in a month's time, and so on and so forth. Creating the team itself, and so on and so forth. You give yourselves a time frame so that you know that by this particular time, if we've started, let's say in December, by the month, let's say of April, we should be done. We should be done with the process and actually rolled out our implementation plan. Here is a sample of a business process business process improvement cycle. So every step we are looking at is basically the 9 steps that this diagram points out it encompasses the generic steps that we have pointed out earlier. Identification of the area that needs to be improved, measure performance, yeah, benchmark process, identify the relevant improvement approach and strategy, learn how to implement, identify the best practice, research, implement, review, and recalibrate. So it's basically a repeat of what we have been discussing earlier. There's nothing new here. So if we were to go through each step by step, so this one simply outlines all of them, but it's simply a repeat of what we have talked about earlier. Here we have a general framework for benchmarking, but again, it points out to the very same things we had talked about earlier. You have the planning phase, the experimental phase, then the improvement phase. The wordings are different, but it's precisely exactly what we've been talking about. Nothing new here in this generic step. Here are some questions for discussion. And these ones, I shall leave them for the next time we meet. But because we have the last week's question, we want to go through as well. So I wouldn't want to, this will be for you to, for your take home to discuss amongst yourselves. And then when we meet again, I believe it will be on the 28th, we can have a discussion on this. Explain how an organization develops its IT strategy might benefit from benchmarking. How are critical success factors important in benchmarking, and so on and so forth. So just go through this as a class, and then we shall go through them as a class on the 28th. Do we have any questions so far?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
And it's been highlighted in one of the questions that was in there among the questions you have highlighted in the previous slide. Is an organization, would it be okay for maybe an organization like a bank to benchmark with an organization that's totally outside of that industry? Because I'm seeing here completely different industry. Would it make sense?
It depends on what type of benchmarking you're doing. It depends on the type of benchmarking that you're doing. Like we pointed out here, let me just go back here, and on types of benchmarking. So is it strategic benchmarking? Is it functional? What is it? I remember as when we had a retreat as board members of the T sector, we were talking about, we wanted to talk about strategic plan formulation and planning. And I remember at that time we were thinking, who should come and talk to us? And there was one lady who insisted. She said, it was a lawyer actually. She said, I would rather that you talk to one of the top management guys in NSSF, and specifically she said, because as far as strategic planning and management is concerned, they've really done a good job. So now imagine this was an NSSF person who came to give us a talk on strategic management and planning as a tea factory. Why? Because we're looking specifically at strategic management. Yeah. But when we were looking at operations of the tea sector, we went to another tea factory, process benchmarking. So it depends on what it is specifically. You may find maybe at strategic planning, there's an organization which is outside your sector, which is doing a really good job. And within your sector, maybe it's not an area that is well understood. So it's more beneficial to go to someone who is outside your sector. But if it is processes, then the process, it really needs to be within your sector. So again, it depends on the type of benchmarking that you're doing. Have I answered your question?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Doctor.
Yes, please.
Yes. Yes, doctor. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, Gertrude?
For the presentation so far. I also have an, yes, in HR. This benchmarking, I think, is is not practical, because when you try to reach out in other organizations, they tend not to give out the information you need. And we really have a challenge of that, of benchmarking in HR departments.
Okay. Sorry, could you repeat the question again, just for...
Yeah, what I was saying,
Hmm.
that I've seen it being done in the HR department, in the HR sector, but there is a problem of organizations not to release their information,
Mhm.
and you
Uh-huh.
end up not getting anything.
Yes. That is why
Mm.
one of the
How do
one
you
of
go
the
about that now?
yes, that's one of the review questions, that the organization you've picked, are you sure you're going to they are going to be open to you? So also the organization you select, it is important that there's a relationship between you
Mm.
them, that they will be open to you. Are you sister companies, things like that? Is there this some of a person you can go to? So take an example.
Oh.
When we went to, we were going as a tea factory, we were going to another sister factory, which was quite similar to ours, farmer centered. But we made sure we went to one which was outside the region of Toro, where we are not fraternizing the same farmers. So it was in the same farmer owned, but it's one which is outside the region. So you're not fraternizing the same farmers, then it's not really a competition. So, but again, Gertrude, the question you ask is extremely important. It's one of the review questions, saying that the organization you've selected to benchmark from, are these going to be open to you, to give you information? Do we have any other question? Yes, Ronald.
Yes, I have a question in regard to what Gertrude has asked.
Yes.
You are saying we should look for areas that maybe are related to what we are, like the field we are in. I can give an example. Like right now, there's a study I'm carrying out.
Yes.
I need information from like telecom providers,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not easy for them to give out that kind of information. Sometimes procedures become procedures, NDA. Even some don't even wish even to sign NDA to give you the information.
Yes, that's
It's
why.
quite an easy. It's not an easy task.
Yes, remember again, because this is benchmarking. This you really need to know who you're going to. It should be an organization that there should be organizational relationships. There should be a relationship between you and that organization. I'll just give you an example here. Okay, let's talk about the university setting. Makerere University to come to Umu to look at the results handling and output of transcripts and certificates. Makerere University, we can easily come and do that, because that is something that you can easily open up to. Mountains of the Moon University went to Kavala University when they were going public, when they were transitioning from a community university to a public university. They went to Kavala University, and Kavala University, that is information that they would openly give you. It depends on what it is you're trying to benchmark. One, that is one. Two, the relationship you have with that organization. If it is your direct competitor that doesn't want you to improve your processes, then that person will not open up to you. You may have to look to an organization that is within your sector, but maybe a direct competitor with you. Yeah, as organizations. I don't know, Ronald, if I answer your question. or supplement your comment?
Yeah, you have answered it, but okay. You see, in the like in universities, public universities, they can easily give you the information like Makerere, like
Yes.
MUBS, Bara University, and the rest. But a private university, most times when they're giving out like information, like the procedures they follow, like maybe if you want to look at their payroll, you want to look at, for example, on the recruitment process, they tend to hide some information away from, especially
Yes.
information that is written like financial. They may think maybe you want to submit information to URA, maybe you're an investigator.
But also
At
you,
certain point, they try to.
the question is, what are you benchmarking? If you're looking at someone's payroll, that is highly private. You want to look at processes you want to improve within your organization. So again, it would also depend on what it is that you are benchmarking. So I'll give you an example. When we went as a factory from the Toro region going to Busheni, we were looking at things like at quality. Yeah. Now every tea processor knows the issue of quality in tea is extremely important. But they also know the quality of tea that that gardens in Uganda can produce. Yeah, because every tea farmer is the same. We all have the same problem. So what are you hiding if I'm looking at quality of tea that you process? Secondly, we all know the market at Mombasa. This factory produces better quality than the other. So maybe I'm coming to look at your machinery. You're not going to hide that your machinery is brand new. I know when your factory opened, it was opened earlier than mine. So there are some things which are quite open. But if you're going to look at someone's payroll, financial performance, that one is a bit sensitive, but you're looking at generic processes that you want to improve. So some things, of course, Ronald, by instinct are a little bit private and no one would want to discuss them. But you're looking at processes that you want to improve within yourself. Okay? Maybe it is how quickly. Let me just give you a simple example. If we look at banks and queues, yeah, banks and queues. If you were to go to any Centenary Bank branch and look at the number of customers they handle per, let's say, per hour, yeah, over the counter services, and then you go to any other bank, be it Stanbic, whatever it is, and notice the time frame, the time process it takes. Centenary Bank definitely takes the trophy on how quickly it handles its customers. Now, if someone was to benchmark that process, I don't think it would be, it is public knowledge. I don't think it is something Centenary Bank would say, I want to hide this process. Yeah, I think this one they would willingly give it to you. But if you want to look at what are their profits, no, that is private. I don't know, Ronald, if I answer your question.
Yes, doctor, I've answered. Thank
Okay.
you.
Doctor, I would also like to give a supplement towards the resentment that organizations can have towards opening up on their data. I think there is a bit of stakeholder engagement that's involved in there, because we've also noticed it within the banking industry. Like if you're looking at picking information maybe from a fellow bank in regards to the security measures they're taking, or the systems they're using, you find that when you're talking with your peers, they are not open to reveal. But if it's done from the level of our MD engaging with the MD of the other bank, you find
Yes.
that then it's easier to actually, if they get the directive from a
Yes.
certain level, just like I think you also explained it to us in the
Mm.
area of research.
Mhm.
Depends when you go to take a survey from people, unless someone they know from within their circles is the one who has recommended, you find that there is a lot of resentment.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if there is some insider influence from a high level, then you find that people become more cooperative, because like you said, usually there is really nothing to hide, but
Okay.
people are usually scared to disclose any information.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
submit.
Chris, I think you have given us a good guidance on that. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm wondering if you had time to think about the question I raised in the previous lecture. Do you remember that question? I'm just going to pull it out. I don't know if you had time to look at it. If no, we can leave this for next week after you've done your assignment, yeah? I think it also ties in, it gives guidance to that assignment that I've given you. Hello?
Yes,
Hello,
doctor, you're clear.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was wondering, had you had time to look at it, or we leave it for next week?
I think we can do that because I don't think any of us had a moment to look at it.
Okay, so please go ahead and look at it, and also look at that assignment. It's an individual assignment, yeah? Okay, I was thinking we may have time to have a look at our third session, which is we are looking at strategic planning. Are we too tired to look at it?
Doctor, we can go on, please.
Okay. So let's look at strategic planning a little bit in detail. Still, this is the generic part. And in this session, we want to look at the role of planning in business, define strategic planning, look at the benefits, list and describe some steps for effective planning, and then be able to perform a SWOT and PO analysis. So the first question is, what is planning? Yeah, what is planning? So we have different definitions of planning. So it is basically a preparation phase. Yeah, it's a preparation phase where we set out steps to achieve a certain goal. So when we look at the word planning, strategic planning, you want to achieve a certain goal. A plan is a map. Yeah, a plan is a map, so it guides one to achieve a specific goal. It's one of the most important steps in management, and it saves you time and saves you making a couple of mistakes here and there. Why does a business need to plan? One, it helps to identify goals and objectives. A planning process helps to formulate strategies so you can achieve those goals and objectives. It also helps you to arrange your steps on what you need to do. Yeah, follow certain steps. So it also helps to implement, direct, and monitor your steps. So what is organizational planning? So here you're looking, it's the same thing, but you're now setting out organizational goals and formulating steps and formulating strategic steps to achieve those goals. So in itself, it involves one, analyzing the organization's environment, forecast internal and external developments, evaluate accomplishments and resources. Here, you have a team building and modeling process. Yeah. So it's the same thing like the benchmarking step, but here it's done for the internal purpose. A team is built, and this team, their purpose is to analyze the organization, analyze the environment, both internal and external. Once you have that image of yourself as a team, you've modeled yourself, you have understood yourselves and where you want to go. You establish a vision and mission statement if this has not been done. You establish goals and objectives that your organization where it needs to go. And once this is done, then strategies and policies are developed. Yeah. From these strategies, organizational plans are then developed and implemented. They are developed and then implemented. So this is nothing new from what we discussed from week 1 last week. This is nothing new, but we're just being very specific on strategic formulation. Here we have 2 scenarios. Briefly, I don't know if we can divide ourselves into 2 groups and focus on these 2 scenarios. If not, no, we can even brainstorm. We don't have to do that. We can brainstorm. You have scenario 1. Yeah, you are a manager of a small furniture company. It has 2 stores situated around the outskirts of Kampala. The company has been there for 5 years. It has 12 people working for you in different departments, that is sales, finance, purchasing, operations. The store has regular customers who revisit. You are aware of your status that you're small, but you want to expand further into central Kampala. So your goal is to expand. What would be just some of the strategic steps you would take to expand within Kampala? What would be some of the strategic objectives you would? Sarah is asking, when is due date for submission? Sarah, you're asking for the assignment on Moodle, or if assignment on Moodle, I think due date is 28th, if I'm not mistaken. for this furniture company, what would they need to expand within Kampala? One of the things you can see here is that they have their regular customers who revisit. They have their regular customers. So they would need to have customers that go within central Kampala. Then they are trying to expand to new markets. Customer centricity, Sarah says customer centricity. Yes, that's a good one. Understanding who your customers are and who the others, the new ones whom you haven't tapped into. There's also another one
Doctor,
here.
how about
Yes, Winfred.
to evaluating your team to see their capabilities and how best you can utilize them?
Yes, that would be another, that would be a good way to evaluate, to see. Sarah says innovation of unique eye-catching pieces. Yes, that's another. Winfred proposes that first evaluate your team to see what are their strengths, weaknesses. Are they able to help you target those new markets? I think those ones are really good. If you look at scenario 2, you're the MD of NAC, a construction company who do business on a global scale. You're about to venture into education for the first time. You'll be building 3 private schools in Abu Dhabi. Each school will be an international school following British curriculum, have the capacity to host over 1,000 students, as well as building the schools. Your company will act as owners and governors. You're aware of the steep competition in education and want to ensure that you offer competitive edge through the standards you will bring. So one of the scenarios would be the market you're going into. What is it that they answer to? What are the things what are their values? Yeah. What are their values? That would be the first question you'd ask yourself. What are the values of this new market we want to venture into? For example, in Uganda, what are the things we value the most? Some people value faith, so they want to focus on faith-based schools. Others now value anything that has international. Anything that has international curriculum that is international, something like that. So if it's a Kampala school, there are all these different things. So for scenario 2, offer better salary to attract teachers. As this attract teachers helps you. Yeah, that's a good one. I've also been to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. One of the things I noticed, one of the things they value is luxury. Luxury is a big thing for them there. So I think that would be one of the things you'd want to pull out, an image of luxury, maybe something a strategy that points towards luxury. Work-life balance, yeah. I think thanks, Sarah is really bringing out some points here and there. Others, any thoughts on this? No? Okay, let's move on. Unique implementations for students' meals, school environment, and class setting. Sarah is really good at this. Eh? Thank you, Sarah. Let's move on to planning fundamentals. What are the three major types of planning that we have within organizations? We have strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning. So strategic, this one is the creative part. Eh? It's painting a picture of what your organization is doing and where it's looking towards. And this one gives direction on what is going to happen, where your organization is going to move in the next year or two. So this one is painting a picture. Yeah, it paints a picture. I remember I watched a movie. There's a Nigerian movie where there was this character who kept saying, I'm always seeing the big picture, the big picture. So it's about the future. The strategic planning is about moving towards how you're moving into the future. Then you have tactical planning. So this one supports strategic planning and by translating them into specific plans. Yeah, specific plans that are targeting something, that are tactical. You're basically trying to target something. So this one is for the lower level departments, can be done for the lower level departments. So the strategic planning can be for the overall organization, then tactical planning can be department focused. Then you have operational planning. So this one is looking at the processes and procedures that occur at the lowest level of the organization. So it basically operationalizes the tactical plan that you have. But we are looking at strategic planning. Why is strategic planning important? So it removes you from the mundane day-to-day activities and helps you see the vision of where you're going to. The day-to-day activities that we do daily, how are they driving us to our next goal, to our future goal, our final goal, the day-to-day activities. So the strategic plan articulates the specific goals. It describes specific actions that need to be taken and is reviewed on a, let's say, every 3 or 5 years. So you have strategic plans which are for 3 years, for 5 years, others are 10 years. 10 years is a bit much, but yeah, most of the time it is better if it's after 5 years so that you know that what I'm doing is actually producing something. So there's a difference between strategic planning and long-range planning. So with strategic planning, you consider the external environment. You consider what is happening in the sector in which you operate and also in the context of the country in which you operate, or countries if it's an international company. Whereas long-range planning is inward-looking at what we want and where we want to be. Strategic planning relies on input from internal and external stakeholders, whereas long-range is mostly looking at the physical budget. Yeah, it's budget-driven. So strategic planning is focused on change and adoption, whereas long-range has minimal involvement from external stakeholders. Strategic planning is the vision of the future, whereas long-range planning is focused on maintaining the status quo. If I'm the lead in the market, I want to maintain my leading position. If I have a specifically niche market, I want to maintain that niche market. But strategic planning is looking at the future, something I don't yet have. So we have strategic planning models which follow these basic scenarios. One, goal-based. Yeah, you must have goals which are common to all, that we all know these are the goals we want to achieve. It works within the agency based on the vision, mission, and the agency goals. Issues-based starts with examining issues the organization is currently facing. We want to overcome those issues. It is organic. It is a living document. It has a time it starts, it's born, and when it ends. That's why it has time periods, 3 years, 5 years. It is scenario-based. Teams participate in a micro world where they envision of where they want the business to go, where it is right now and where they need it to go. You create alternative scenarios so that the scenario, then a selection is made by the team on which scenario do we wish to focus on as an organization. What steps are taken to have a comprehensive strategic plan? One is a situation assessment and analysis. So situation assessment is where we look at ourselves, as SWOT analysis, to see our strengths and weaknesses and so on and so on, or even just to see where are we right now? Are we happy with ourselves? So the situation analysis and SWOT analysis can be done concurrently because it helps analyze where we are right now. You look at the external competitive analysis, or rather the external environment, the context in which we exist. Where are we? Are we number one, number two, number three? Are we at the bottom of in our sector? Where do we lie? You identify strategic and critical issues that need to be handled. You design a strategic plan, write up the plan, implement it, measure success of the plan. So in the situation analysis, you determine what our distinct competences, what makes us unique, who are we? For example, if you ask an UMU employee, who is UMU? What is UMU as an organization? What would you describe it as? What is unique about UMU in comparison to all other universities? Market evaluation in terms of product, price, place, and promotion. Estimation of product service life. The external, the client and customer's perception of you. So here data is collected. You can do a survey or focus group discussion or interviews to determine who you are. Expectations, satisfaction levels. What do they value? Your customers, how do they think we are doing? How are we meeting their needs? How are their needs being met, or how are they evolving? The external competitive analysis, you're scanning your environment for competitors. Who are my competitors? The benchmarking process, this is where it comes in, because it lets you know how your competitor is performing in comparison to you. Then also here you have data collection methods. Again, it could be a survey, interviews, whatever it is. Questions that need to be answered. Who else is providing the service? Are we spreading ourselves thin? Is our product performing in the market? Is our service and product consistent with our mission and vision? Look at all the issues, problems, and opportunities can potentially have a large impact on the organization based on your analysis of situational analysis and also the external environment. What is it that we cannot afford to ignore? Yeah, then there you're prioritizing. So here you have a brainstorming process as a team. You rank your priorities, list 5 to 10. Then you can do a ballot, a secret ballot where people vote and say, this is the priority areas that we should deal with first. Then performing a SWOT analysis. So here, you internally, you look at your strengths and your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Yeah. Then you look at also your POs, the possibilities and obstacles. any opportunities that you have influence over, and obstacles, any threats that you can have influence over, but move to obstacles. So now your strategic plan is a response to this analysis that you've carried out. Yeah, the situational analysis, the external competitive analysis, the problem areas now that you'd have identified from this analysis, you then begin to formulate your strategic analysis. Your strategy should provide clear and concise answers for the following. Where do we compete? What is unique about us? What is so unique about us that we would provide to the customer that others are not providing? What resources and capabilities? When we look at resources and capabilities, this would come from our SWOT analysis, because the SWOT analysis tells you what your strengths and weaknesses are. If at this point you realize your employee workforce is not up to par, then probably think about beefing up that resource. Also your financial resources and so on and so forth. How do you sustain your unique value? Because the thing is also not to say that we are going to be like others. I'm going to be like, Umu is going to be like UCU. Umu is going to be like Makerere. No, Umu is unique in itself. You want to maintain that uniqueness because there'll never be another Umu. Yeah? You can't be another Makerere. There's already a Makerere. So what is unique about us that we maintain that uniqueness about your organization? The other thing is you need to be flexible. Yeah, you need to consider about being flexible. As much as you want to be Umu, you can't remain rigid. Address the critical issues. Address issues that are within your control. In all of this, make sure that you're in line with your mission and vision statements. Be modeled around the best practices. Encourage innovation and creativity. So that's why it's done in a team. Then whatever the strategic plan, it should have a time frame. So you should have your strategic plan that you know is achievable between 3 to 5 years, depending on the lifespan of your strategic plan. So in designing your strategic plan, skate to where you expect success, not where it has been, where you expect to pick a new market, to experience something new that is going to gain you a competitive advantage. Writing up your strategic plan, use 1 or 2 people as writers so that you have one consistent voice. Then they circulate the written document to the team and other key holders to establish feedback. Implementation. To implement, first communicate the plan. So throughout the analysis, you would analyze with the entire organization. And then now as you're formulating your strategic plan, you're now communicating the findings of what you had in the strategic plan. And now we're saying, since we found these gaps, these are the gaps we want to close. Yeah. So we communicate to be able to influence achievement of the needed changes. Yeah. So that's one of the primary reasons why we communicate. We want quick wins. We want to influence a change. We don't want quick wins per se, but we need to influence change. You want to keep your strategic priorities up front. What are the things we need to prioritize that are going to create that change? Build and maintain a sense of high urgency. It needs to be made clear that these changes must be made in order for the organization to survive. There must be enthusiasm for the plan, from top management all the way to the bottom. You must sell the benefits. Who will benefit once these improvements are seen? Maintain a constant channel of communication. All the people you're communicating to, all the stakeholders, there must be a two-way communication, that it's not just you ramming things down someone's throat, but you're getting feedback on, especially on the plan itself, on how practical it is to create those changes. Constantly praise those who are making significant strides in adopting the change. Own up to failures. If there are any changes or any failures, own up to them and make the changes. Issues that may lead to failure of implementation of a strategic plan: lack of participation, lack of communication, poorly thought out strategy, failure to hold people accountable, picking the wrong people for the tasks. Here are just some references that you can go through on strategic planning generically. Do you have any question so far?
No questions, Doctor.
Okay. So with that, I think we can close today's lecture so that next week we look at ICT strategic planning and formulation. Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes,
Doctor.
that's okay.
Okay.
Doctor,
Yes, please.
I had some information that as if we shall be shutting down as a university on 20th because of the
Yes.
festive seasons.
Yes.
Are we not going to have some festivals for that matter, Doctor?
I was thinking 28th is 28th. Is it still within the festive period?
Of course,
No.
No,
but
28th is
within
no.
there we can still.
Sorry?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, fine. Eh?
Doctor, is this assignment you've told us on Moodle?
Yes, it is. It's already on Moodle.
Okay. I enrolled myself today and I saw the course started 2021. Hope I'm not in a different cohort.
No, no, no.